Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Welcome back to the madness of Rostermania. And Atlanta FaZe are struggling potentially to find a fourth player to round out their roster. There's many targets that they have tried to acquire over the last several days, but some teams have actually rejected their offers for players that are already under contract, and maybe their options are slimming down very much so indeed. Could Simp be a target, but if they can't get him, who is going to be the fourth for Atlanta FaZe this season? And is it actually going to be an upgrade on Arcitys that they had the last couple of years? Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you are new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. Really upset the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that. I thought this was pretty funny from Clay actually, because, you know, it leaves the subliners, of course, kind of harkening back to this pretty funny tweet from back in March 2021, when, of course, there was the trash talk that went down pre-season between Clay and Dashy, and then, of course, you'll get the better of him on this particular occasion. This also was pretty funny from Doug Wright, finally turned 18 years old. I believe he's actually turning 28 now instead of 18, but I mean, you know, still close enough. My dream to compete in the con league is finally going to become a reality. Ever since I was 12, I wanted this more than anything. Going to give 100% every single day. So yeah, Doug's still going. I just thought, you know, it's pretty funny to be honest. This is the meme that the pros do, that, okay, if you're 18, you get picked up, and if you're any older than that, you know, teams won't give you a chance. So yeah, Doug's trying to pretend he's 18 again to get a spot somewhere. He's more than likely going to be on the Boston Breach substitute bench and try and absolutely fry and get a spot. Wanted to mention Crimsix real quick, because Crim's been doing a lot the last couple of days. He's been pretty active, saying a fair bit, but there's just been so much happening that we haven't really got to talk about Crimsix that much. Probably the more likely opportunity now for Crimsix is that he goes and does full-time content, right? It's difficult to see too many spots out there for a main AR, right? The fact that Arcitys and Cellium are now both probably going to be main ARs, like, there isn't really an opportunity on the subliners, because Skies is going to be there. Like, most of the other teams have their guys in mind, and also Crimsix only really wants to go to a team that, you know, he really wants to play for a team that's based in Texas. He doesn't want to move up to Minnesota, even if that was an option. He doesn't want to play for Vegas because they're going to pay him not as much as he thinks he's worth. So, you know, like, he wants to play for a team that's going to give him a good salary, and also is going to be locally kind of, well, relatively local. New York Subliners, they are based out of Texas. Los Angeles Guerrillas in Texas, but they've got Arcitys now. Like, you know, maybe a team like Boston could be an option for him, but who knows if they're going to go down that route, right? So it seems unlikely to me Crim's going to get a spot unless he can run a flex, in which case maybe that's an option for certain teams that need a player in that role. But yeah, as the days pass, it does seem less and less likely Crim's going to get a spot and might have to retire this season, which would be a massive shame for the Call of Duty scene. I don't think he's going to go away, though. I think this is kind of the key point really about when these players retire, is that as long as Crimsix is still involved within the scene, yes, he might not be playing, and of course that would be a big loss, but if he's still involved and giving his opinions and, you know, tweeting about stuff and maybe getting on the broadcast, doing some analyst work on the stream, or, you know, whatever the case might be there, or maybe even joining a team as a coach or something down the line as well, like, we're still going to hear from this man. I mean, like, this guy's absolutely out of control, of course. And even as he's kind of saying right here, yeah, maybe he burned a few too many bridges this time around, and it finally has maybe come back to bite him with not being able to quite find a team. It could still happen, of course. Rostermania is crazy, and teams could make some seriously insane moves, to be honest. It's very possible that someone sketches on their team last minute, and all of a sudden an opportunity opens up, especially given that FaZe are looking for a player as well. Imagine Crim to FaZe as the flex. Like, okay, I'm not even going to entertain it because it's not going to happen, unfortunately, but that would be absolutely comedy after the couple of years that they've had. Crim's like, look, Tiny Terrors, you beat me every single time, but you know, if I can't beat you, I'm just going to join you instead and come into the team, because maybe FaZe are running similar options. I doubt they're going to ever pick up the phone to call Crimsix, but yeah, who even knows. Just wanted to say this real quick on expansion. There's you know, highly unlikely expansion's going to come through. The difficulty is that, especially like with the way the economy is now, and also the fact that like they want to put the prices up, right? If they're going to sell new franchises, they have to put the prices up from $25 million, because otherwise, like, if they put them down or keep them the same, then all the investors are like, well, look, I paid 25 mil for this a few years ago. My asset hasn't appreciated at all. That's the way that these teams are going to try and think to make some actual money, is because they invest 25 mil. Well, at least in a few years' time, they can theoretically sell that spot on for 30, 35 mil or whatever. If that's not the case and there's no appetite at those prices, then it's kind of bad for everyone, right? So we want expansion to happen, but it does seem unlikely relatively soon. The more likely thing is that another owner comes to and buys out Las Vegas Legion, or, you know, former Paris Legion or whatever, which is, of course, a possibility. Maybe not this season, though. So yeah, doubtful again that expansion will happen. Maybe next year, but unfortunately, it seems unlikely. And if that's the case, of course, then Crim, if expansion happened, Crim would get a spot. But with that not being the case, seems rather unlikely, and for many players as well. We saw earlier today, of course, Los Angeles Guerrillas picking up Arcitys. The deal has apparently been done. The buyout is sorted, and he's going to be an LAG player going into next season. That, of course, leaves FaZe looking for one, and it's a really interesting change, really, for Atlanta FaZe, just because I wonder how long they've planned this. Like, were they thinking before Champs they wanted to make a change? Was it an actual player-led thing? Did the team decide to do it? as kind of from a general manager perspective rather than the players deciding it. But then again, Arcitys was their weakest link. He was always going to be the player first drop from this team if they didn't get the results that they wanted. And you can talk all the time about what Arcitys brings to the team outside of just the slaying and stuff, because like his slaying wasn't that good this year. When you watched Arcitys play, you'd see him lose a gunfight and you're like, yeah, damn, he really should have won that one. Like that would have been big for the team. Like it happens more often with him than any other player right on the team. But of course, they had still pretty good results regardless. It's definitely a surprise that they would make this move, given that what they've been the last couple of seasons, but maybe they feel like they can upgrade. The thing is though, if they're going to upgrade, like to blow up the team that they've had and the dominant force they had in Cold War, and even this season they were still the scariest team to play for the entirety of it. Like whenever you play FaZe, you're thinking, oh damn, it's FaZe. Like they obviously carry that level of weight. To blow this team up and drop Arcitys means that you've got to find a suitable replacement, really. And I thought they would have had their eyes on someone already that they were trying to get in. Now, yes, they tried to get Shotzzy, but realistically, was Shotzzy ever going to leave OpTic? That's probably not going to happen. Rumor had it they never even tried to get Dashy, and that wasn't even a plan, but other ARs could be on their radar. So as Crone says, FaZe are going after whoever they want. If they want someone, they're going to phone them up. Free agents and players under contract. Free agents could potentially go. Like, if they really want Hydra, they should probably be able to get Hydra, right? Because yes, he has the contract deal on New York Subliners, but at the end of the day, he is unrestricted, so you don't have to rely on an organization like saying, okay, we'll let him go. Because if you're FaZe and you're going after someone who is under contract and that organization wants to build around that player going into this year, and you say, no, we're going to buy him out, that organization is going to be like, well, no, because, we're not going to let our star player go to FaZe and make you, best team in the game again, or even scarier than you already were. Like, we're going to do everything we can. If you're Seattle and they come and knock in the door for Pred, and like, well, okay, look, you're going to have to pay us like, okay, $10 million, I don't know, just name a price, because Seattle obviously don't want to do that, because then, okay, you just give your best player to FaZe, and FaZe are FaZe, and then it's like, well, how do we expect to beat them this season? So, like, any player that FaZe are going for that is under contract already, like, is highly likely to get rejected. So, free agents could be their last and final call here, and it might be players they don't really want at the end of the day. So, as kind of Crone says, if they do want a player that's under contract, as they do in certain instances, it comes down to if that franchise wants to sell that particular player or not. Now, apparently they've been after certain players. So, as I say, Hydra is a free agent. He hasn't signed a deal yet. And, look, if the FaZe thing happens, the thing is with Hydra, though, is that obviously the subliners are going to be pushing for him to sign, and he doesn't really know what's going on with FaZe because, they're obviously considering other players as well. So, it's an absolute mess, and the FaZe thing is pretty much holding up a lot of what's happening right now because they're trying to find a player that's going to go, and probably the players they really want are players that are under contract and the team is not going to agree to unless there's a massive buyout that comes their way. Now, in fairness, FaZe have a lot of money to spend now because they just sold Arcitys, but they might have to spend more than they sold him for effectively to get some of the players they might potentially want. This is something to mention because I heard a couple of different ways that actually FaZe might have wanted Insight on their team, which is super surprising to me, and I can't really fully believe it, but apparently this was actually a viable option because I thought the idea of dropping Arcitys was you're going to put Cell to the main and get a flex in, and if you can't get a flex, get an SMG in, and then Simp runs the flex, for example. Apparently, though, Insight was a consideration for this team. Maybe they wanted better search and destroy or whatever, because Insight definitely provides that to the team, but yeah, if that was the case, Insight would be the main, Cell would be the flex. So, seems to me that FaZe are trying to get whoever they can, and whoever they think is good enough to fit what they need from the team, and then just figure the roles out later. We can get a main AR, we can get a flex, we can get an SMG, doesn't matter. We're going to figure the roles out ourselves, just get us someone good eventually is what FaZe seem to be thinking right now. So Insight apparently was an opportunity, but Toronto may just have been like, yeah, well, no, you're not having Insight because, we're just going to completely decline. That doesn't matter how much you offer us effectively because Insight's a key piece of our team going forward. We're not going to get rid of both Cammy and Insight in the same transfer window effectively, and this is actually what Crone goes on to confirm, that teams can decline, and they already have. So some teams, maybe including Toronto with the whole Insight situation, maybe other ones as well, have already declined FaZe. So, like, whether FaZe come back with now a bigger offer, because, like, the pressure's kind of on them, really, because as I say, Hydra is probably a player that they can get. If they want to commit to Hydra, they can probably tempt him away from New York because they can offer him a big deal, and look, it's FaZe. Hydra will want to go to a team that can win like FaZe if they actually want him. They probably don't fully want Hydra, though. They probably want a different player to join their team instead that's not a unrestricted free agent. Therefore, like, they have to rely on these organizations agreeing to the buyout. So either FaZe just keep upping their price until they crack the other organization and they force them to accept, but if they do that and they keep putting the price up, then Hydra's going to be sitting there, well, like, okay, well, should I just sign for New York because, maybe the FaZe thing isn't going to happen, they don't really want me anyway, so let me just sign the New York deal, get the $500k per year bag that they seem to be offering, and then FaZe are now stuck without Hydra because maybe he signed to New York, and now the only players that they can try and get are players that, they can buy out from other teams, that those teams might deny them, right, because it's FaZe. If FaZe come knocking thinking you're going to ask for an absolute bag at the very minimum, because you definitely don't want to allow them to improve for free. Now, one other player that people have been talking about, of course, is Simp, right? Because when the rumors came out that FaZe are targeting players that are under contract, you would think that Seattle Surge would be pretty much the top of their list. Pred or Simp would be the two key guys. Now, Simp was, of course, previously part of FaZe, and coincidentally, very coincidentally, he just happens to tweet out last night, or quote tweet, the announcement video when he was joining FaZe as their substitute back in 2020 for the Cold War season. He says this went low-key hard. So I'm like, is he trying to make it obvious that FaZe are interested in him, or is this actually just, you know, complete BS and kind of distracting from the actual situation? That might be that they don't really want Simp anyway, right? But that could make sense, because if they were interested in Insight and interested in Hydra, then why not be interested in a flex player as well, right? Because Cell could run the main. I don't really know what FaZe are thinking right now, and I also kind of am surprised that they were so quick to do the Arcitys thing, maybe thinking that there was, you know, some other players that they could get easily, and it turns out it's maybe slightly more difficult to get the players they want than they actually realized. This also from the flankers that he says, Aches isn't wrong, he's just early. Maybe, I think kind of people are indicating in the replies, could this be the fact that, okay, Seattle Surge, for example, like Aches always told them to blow it up, and the reality is they didn't blow it up, and they did way better than most of the teams in the league, winning at events, coming top 3 at champs. But of course, like maybe they do now blow it up, even though it's not really a blow it up session if only one player leaves because they got bought out by FaZe, but something to consider regardless, because Seattle might say to a guy like Simp or to a guy like Pred, like, look, they've only got one more year left on their deal, and they're probably not on crazy money, even though they might be, because I heard rumors that Phoenix, the Seattle coach, might be like one of the highest paid coaches in the entire league. So probably those guys, even though they're in their first year in the CDL, probably getting paid pretty well by Surge. But even if they are, there is certainly a situation where Seattle realize that, okay, well, if we don't sell Pred or Simp now, they're just going to walk away next year and go to FaZe or whatever. So we might as well sell them for a massive amount of money before they then walk away for free next season. So that's another thing to consider for the chaotic period that we have. Another option, of course, is Gunless. There has been some considerations because, you know, Gunless is out there as a restricted, unrestricted free agent, and that is the thing, given maybe some history with him and some of these other guys, whether it's possible that if they can't get anyone that they really want, the Gunless as the flex player on this team, Cell as the main could work. I honestly kind of like that, but it's certainly an interesting one. But there are some unrestricted free agents out there that they can acquire, but Gunless is obviously going to have his offers as well, potentially from other teams. So, you know, a bit of a strange situation, to be honest. But yeah, FaZe are going to try and get someone. Some other players that have been mentioned, I kind of doubt the Priester thing happens, but again, Priester, another unrestricted free agent. So, like, FaZe will get someone decent. Whether they'll get someone spectacular, that's a question. Slasher, of course, also a free agent, restricted though from the Los Angeles Gritters. They might do the trade there. Like, and if they're considering a guy like Insight, why not consider a guy like Slasher? Because, you know, he's been on FaZe in the past. Yes, many years ago when he looked rather different to how he does today. But Slasher could maybe bring some firepower, some leadership. It depends what they're wanting, right? If FaZe think that they were lacking firepower last year, which maybe they were arguably in Arcitys, then, you know, potentially Slasher could solve those issues. So many questions. FaZe, of course, will get someone as at least decent at the end of the day, but they might not get the player they want. And apparently they've been rejected already by a couple of different organizations that have tried to get players out. As I say, maybe they can just up the amount of money they're offering and get the deal done. But that's, well, certainly easier said than done, let's just say. And this also from Crone saying that it's very possible, not exactly likely, but it's possible that someone sketches, right? Because, you know, what if Shotzzy says right before he signs the new deal, you know what, FaZe have offered me so much money and it's FaZe, I'm just going to leave OpTic. He's not going to do it, but, you know, something of that caliber could potentially happen here. So very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. What do you think is going to happen next to all of these teams? I mean, look, the only teams that we know are going to stick are Los Angeles Thieves. And even then, like, can you imagine if FaZe came knocking for... It's not going to happen, right? Thieves aren't going to sell. They have too much money. And I don't even think FaZe would bother. But, like, if FaZe did come knocking and said, yeah, Kenny, we want you. Yeah, Drazah, we want you. Like, you know, how much money would they have to pay for Thieves to sell them, right? It's not going to happen. But, I don't know. It's an interesting thing to think about. And not something I thought we'd even be thinking about going into this offseason, because thought FaZe were probably going to stick it out. But the only teams that will probably, well, firstly, Thieves and OpTic, and probably the Seattle Surge. But that could, of course, get blown up if FaZe decide to really get their wallet out and make a serious bid for some of these guys. But very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you are new as always. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.